The creek is frozen over, busy leaves suspended in ice and time. The dog is asleep in my bed, snoring, dreaming of sunshine and squirrels. The neighbors are in their houses, chimneys puffed with post-holiday fires. And there is nothing that needs to be done but rest, and the rest will be taken care of later. Welcome to Games in the Glade, a stress-free gaming news and reviews podcast. I'm your host, Tina Kelly, and I'll be guiding you through some of the recent news in the gaming world, as well as telling you about a game I think you'll enjoy. This episode, I'll cover the Indie Live Expo Awards, PlayStation Plus's new feature, changes happening in D&D, and information about the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet patch. Then I'll discuss the Wholesome Direct Showcase, as well as the Game Awards and the games announced during it. And I'll talk about a game I've got my eyes on called Dordogne. Then I'll get your responses to last episode's question about what games you think are the most visually stunning. Lastly, I'll give my review of Ooblets and finish up by asking you what you think are the games of the year. First, a heads up. Awesome Games Done Quick is coming up. It'll be a week-long charity event featuring speedrunners from all around the world doing what they do best and raising money for charity. I tune in every year and I recommend that you do the same because I'm looking forward to a lot of really cool games like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, which I mention every time I play any Pokemon game. I love it and I can't wait to see it speedrun. Yakuza Kiwami, which I just beat last year, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which is a game I'm going to be playing this January as a part of my event New Year, New Game Every Day, in which I'm playing a new game or two every day. Of course, I normally just tune in and watch as many runs as I possibly can. I put it on while I'm doing dishes, I put it on while I'm cleaning, doing makeup. I watch it from morning to night. All the GDQ events, so it's going to be fun no matter what game is on. Make sure you tune in to twitch.tv/GDQ on January 8th through the 15th, and if you'd like to check out the schedule, I have linked to that in the description of this episode. You can see what games are going to be on that you are looking forward to. The Indie Live Expo is a digital showcase connecting indie game fans all over the world, according to a post by Anime News Network. In it, new trailers for upcoming games and recently released indie games are broadcast globally in Japanese with a live English translation. They also feature an awards program that celebrates the indie achievements in the past year. The awards are determined by a general public vote, plus a vote conducted by members of the media. In case you want to know what's hot in Japan right now, and also possibly find a new game to play, here are the awards and their winners. The most stream-friendly game award went to Needy Streamer Overlord, which beat out Trombone Champ, Poppy's Playtime, and The Complex Found Footage. The best new character award went to Stray this year over Needy Streamer Overlord, Cult of the Lamb, and also Deer Simulator with a few E's, like 3 or 4 E's in there. I can't remember. Best game feel went to Neon White over Have a Nice Death, Rogue Legacy 2, and Fist. Theme of the year went to Omori, which won out over Fashion Police Squad, Needy Streamer Overlord, and a game called Milk Outside of a Bag of Milk Outside of a Bag of Milk, which sounds really interesting to me. I hope that that's available in English. The Rules of Play Award, which goes to a game with groundbreaking mechanics or rules, went to 7 Days to End With You, which beat out A=B, Shotgun King, The Final Checkmate, and Who's Lila, which is a very interesting game because you have to use your mouse to drag the character's face into the shape of the emotion you want them to express. I want to check that one out myself. The Trailer of the Year award went to Stray's launch trailer, which I think I saw that coming because I saw that trailer everywhere when it came out. It beat out Fashion Police Squad's launch trailer, the Power Wash Simulator's infomercial, which was very clever, and the Trek to Yomi trailer. Best short game, which is under 5 hours, went to Unpacking over Vampire Survivors, which has been kind of a big phenomenon here in the West, I know. It also beat out Opening the Doors and Perfect Girl. The Rediscovery Award goes to a game that broadens an existing genre and perfects it. It went to Potato Flowers in Full Bloom over Elec Head, which is a platformer, Happy Game, which is a not-so-happy game, and Songs of Conquest, which I haven't heard of yet. The most addictive game went to Vampire Survivors over Farthest Frontier, Raft, and Yugo Puzzle. Late Bloom Award. Aren't these such interesting titles, by the way? Interesting awards. Think of these later when I'm asking you about your games of the year. Anyway, Late Bloom Award, which goes to a game which didn't take off until later in the year due to delays or fixes that needed to be made. Raft won over Anno Mutationum. I hope I'm saying that right. RPG Time, The Legend of Wright, and Les Hyponauts. And finally, the grand prize. Rather than define what an indie game is, this award hits at what the soul of indie games is this year. So it's a big deal. Went to Unpacking, which I reviewed last year, and honestly, when I do my game of the year list, I have got a lot to think about. Tunic, Unpacking, Card Shark, so many incredible games. And very interesting that many of them are indie as well. For my list, not for this one, as it is a list celebrating indie games. Anyway, congratulations to the nominees and the winners of the Indie Live Expo Awards. If any listeners would like to check out the award show for themselves, I'll put a link to that in the description of this episode. PlayStation Plus premium subscribers can now sort through PAL versions of video games and the NTSC versions of games, allowing players to change their region in order to play PS1 games at better performance levels. PAL region games run at 50 Hz, whereas NTSC versions of those same PS1 games run at 60 Hz, and differences in performance can account for slowdowns, frame rate dips, all kinds of unpleasant things. So if you've been experiencing any of that while indulging in some PS1 nostalgia, consider pausing your game and changing to the NTSC version of it in the settings menu below the controls option. Thank you to Raul Landaverde for the information on this new feature. I will link to that article in the description of this episode. As culture changes and as our scope broadens to include more people, often the language we use changes. Such is the case even in D&D, one of the most widely recognizable tabletop gaming experiences. The staff at D&D Beyond announced in early December that due to the precious links between real-world people and the fantasy people in D&D worlds, and in consideration of the diverse community that plays D&D, from here on out, the game is replacing the term race with species. The decision was made in coordination with cultural consultants and will involve a play test for the upcoming Unearthed Arcana materials where players can give feedback on the term species, along with everything else present in the playtest materials. I, for one, think that changes like this are great for the community and they're easy changes to make. If you really love D&D, you love playing with other people, and removing insensitive language is just one way to remove barriers to entry for folks that otherwise may not have felt comfortable playing. It's an easy change and a significant one, so kudos to Wizard of the Coast for initiating that change. If you'd like to read more on the change itself, I'll link to the blog post in the description of this episode. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet launched mid-November, and I've heard mixed reviews for it. Folks in my community say they think it is super fun to play, and they talk about how much they like the co-op and the character design. On the other hand, I have seen those viral videos of the odd glitches people have experienced in the game, like falling through the world or suddenly growing dramatically in size when you mount your bicycle. Bugs like these can deter folks from even trying a game. In fact, I usually wait a little while after a game comes out to play it myself because I want to avoid glitches and the unpleasant gameplay that later gets fixed and refined. Nintendo realized that there was a problem and has pushed a patch to update Scarlet and Violet to address these performance issues, to correct the music that plays during certain battles like the Elite Four, and to also kick off the first season of ranked battles for the new generation of Pokemon. In the post about the update, they did apologize for the inconvenience and explain that the company takes player feedback seriously as they work on improvements for the games. For more information, including how to download the latest patch, I'll link the Nintendo support article on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in the description of this episode. Wholesome Games is a group that brings to light great indie games that are out now or are on their way. This year, before the Game Awards, and in partnership with it, Wholesome Games presented the Wholesome Snack, showcasing upcoming indie games. Here are some that caught my eye. First up, Mail Time, which is a game about a little mushroom person who delivers mail in a magical forest full of wacky creatures. It had an animated trailer this time around, harnessing the art style of the character portraits and showing how the main character gets to the woods. It's cute, colorful, and cottagecore Ish or Corey or whatever. So if that sounds like your vibe, look forward to April 2023 when it comes out on PS5, PS4, Switch, and Steam. Spirit Tea was also announced at the Wholesome Direct. It's a life sim management game that the announcers Jenny Wyndham and Victoria Tran described as being kind of like Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, and also Studio Ghibli films. It's coming in 2023 and it'll be available on Game Pass at launch, also available on Steam, Epic, and the Switch. Chia, which was covered, a lot of these games have been covered, by the way, in previous Wholesome Directs, but Chia was one of them that I have been looking at for a while. It had another trailer in this Direct, which delved into the culture, landscape, and the history of New Caledonia that inspired the game. The game is made by New Caledonians and also voiced by local talent to help breathe the languages of New Caledonia into the game. It's coming to the Epic Game Store, PS5, and PS4 in 2023. A cute concept that I found interesting was Knot, where you clear up garbage in the ocean and you recycle it. You interact with sea life, revive the planet, and establish ecosystems in an alien world. There's a demo now on Steam, with the full game coming in September 2023. Blanc, which is a co-op game about the friendship between a black fox and a white fawn, was also shown in an earlier Wholesome Direct. In its new trailer, however, it got a release date of February 14th, 2023, when it's coming to Epic, Switch, and Steam. Tiny Glade is a new game that I haven't seen trailers for before. It's super precious. In it, you create ruins in a tiny glade. That's it. There is no combat, there's no management. It's just playing with wood and bricks to create a peaceful scene and gates and walls and all that jazz in a lush countryside. It looks like a very nice mindless game. There's no release date yet, but I have my eyes on this one now. One game I have been waiting for forever, and I'm trying not to be loud about this because it's a very calm podcast, but I've been waiting a very long time for Bits and Bops, ever since I saw the first gameplay trailer they had put out a long time ago, maybe about a year or two ago, of hammering nails to the beats and a little kitty cat putting its paw over what you were seeing, so it obscures the rhythm and you have to listen to that anyway. I saw a trailer for Bits and Bops a while back, and when I saw this trailer in this new Direct, I was practically screaming. Bits and Bops is a rhythm heaven-like game featuring over 20 minigames with tons of personality. The music is catchy and cute. The art style is precious. I am so excited for Bits and Bops. In fact, the morning I'm recording this, I backed the game myself on Kickstarter because I am so excited to play it, and I need it to come out, and I need it to be beautiful and amazing and fully done. I don't know if that Kickstarter is going to be available by the time I'm done editing this episode, but check it out. Bits and Bops. If you're a rhythm game fan, it's everything you'd want, that for some reason the big studios aren't making them like this anymore. So thank you, Bits and Bops creators, for this meal that I will be feasting on hopefully in 2024. Lastly, Europa is an adventure game about an android named Z who explores the ruins of Utopia on Jupiter's moon, named Europa, of course. The flying and the exploration in this one look very fun. When I asked my community what they liked from the Game Awards, a few of them actually mentioned Europa by name, which is a surprise because this had happened before the Game Awards. Anyway, it's coming in 2023. I'll link the entire presentation in the description of this episode in case you want to watch the trailers for yourself and see what else is there that you like, because I did not cover every game. There's probably a game in there for you too. Okay, on to the Game Awards itself. I did not catch this one live as I was streaming at the time, but thankfully I didn't have anything spoiled. Thank you to my beautiful community for not mentioning anything in my chat. I watched the trailers the next morning in bed before looking at anything else, and here's what I would like to highlight. The biggest announcement for me was, of course, Hades 2. This one needs no press unless you are new to indie games, which, if you're new, welcome! If you are new to indie games, please play Hades. I feel like I'm gonna cry because this game is so good. Honestly, it is one of the best games, hands down, no modifiers. Not like one of the best indie games, but like literally one of the best games of all time. I normally don't really play roguelike games, which are games with procedurally generated elements, like There'll be levels that you play where the monsters are in different places, or it's whole different monsters, or these things happen out of sequence, or whatever. But Hades handles the concept magnificently, blending level crawling and dungeon diving with compelling visual elements that, to me, were the true reward of all this hard work fighting enemies and bosses. I wanted to get stronger, and I wanted to help Zagreus get closer to his comrades. I'm truly looking forward to the sequel because I have faith that Supergiant Games, who is the developer of Hades 1 and now 2, will be able to deliver a narrative that is as compelling as the former. It'll be in early access in 2023. Next up, Judas, made by the creators of BioShock. It looks a great deal like it. Very fun and wacky, so if you enjoyed BioShock and its iterations, you might enjoy this. Unfortunately, I can't play any first-person games because I get motion sickness, so I'll be sitting this one out, but I hope the rest of you love it. It's coming to the Xbox Series X and S, PS5, Steam, and Epic. Viewfinder looks like a very interesting first-person puzzle game like Superliminal. Use photographs and images to overlay what's currently in your view, and then you walk into or onto the path that you've built by overlapping what's present. I was interested to see it explores a lot of different art styles. It's coming to PS5, possibly in 2023? No hard date for this one yet. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is coming March 17th, 2023. It's a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, following Cal Kestis, a Jedi who survived the order to assassinate all Jedi. I enjoyed the first one, so I will be checking out this game as well, and it looks like BD1, my favorite little guy, is back as well, and also a few more members of Cal's crew, so it should be a fun romp. Horizon Forbidden West is getting a DLC called Burning Shores. I think it's set in Hollywood, of all places. Very cool. It's coming April 19th, 2023. Among Us also got a hide-and-seek mode where one person is the killer and the rest of the crewmates must hide for their lives. That is currently playable, and I'll be checking it out this month for New Year, New Game every day. In news that made my brother scream so loud that I heard it from my bedroom while he was watching from the dining room on his gamepad, Armored Core is back with Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. The trailer for it was not a gameplay trailer, I don't think, but it did look amazing. I remember watching my brother play Armored Core for hours and hours and hours as a kid, customizing his core and battling endlessly. The newest iteration comes out in 2023 to the PS4 and PS5. That means I can play it. Xbox Series S and X, Xbox One, and also Steam, which also means I can play it. I'll have to see which one is going to be graphically better. Death Stranding 2 was also announced, and it looks like Norman Reedus and Leah Seydoux are back for more Odd Couple parenting. Joining the cast will be Elle Fanning and Shirley Kutsuna, with Troy Baker returning, possibly to reprise his role as a guy with a mathematical formula tattooed across his eyebrows. It's coming to the PS5 with no news yet of any other platforms, and there's no release date yet for this one, so we'll just have to stay tuned for more details. If you want to watch all the trailers for these games, you can check them out at the Game Awards YouTube channel. I'll also link the video compilation that I watched from YouTube user Tan Riddle in the description of this episode. The Game Awards, of course, happened after the Wholesome Direct, and while I didn't watch anything but the trailers, I did look into the awards afterwards. Elden Ring swept a good deal of the awards, taking Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Art Direction, and Best RPG. God of War Ragnarok also took home quite a few awards despite its late release, winning Best Narrative, Best Score or Music, Best Audio Design, Best Performance for Voice Acting, Motion or Performance Capture, Innovation and Accessibility, and Best Action Adventure Game. As Dusk Falls, an interactive crime drama, won for Games for Impact this year. Final Fantasy XIV, which I am playing on Saturdays, won Best Ongoing Game and Best Community Support. And in a shocker, maybe just to me, maybe it's not a shocker to you all, but Stray beat out Tunic for Best Indie as well as Best Debut Indie. Bayonetta 3 beat out Sifu and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, among others, for the Best Action Game. Multiverses won for Best Fighting Game, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land won for Best Family Game. There were many more awards, so if you want to know more about the rest of the winners, you can check them out on the Game Awards website, or you can read Logan Plant's article over on IGN, which is where I got my information from. I'll link to that article in the description of this episode. I want to start a new micro segment where I introduce you to a game that's coming out sometime in the future that you may not have heard about elsewhere. There are so many games coming out always that it's hard to keep track, but I find that wishlisting games that I'm interested in is the best way to find that something I thought cool 5 years ago is finally coming out. I hope that this next game will be one of those for you. The game I want to mention briefly that you ought to keep an eye on is called Dordogne, which is a narrative adventure game with a watercolor aesthetic. Every landscape in the game is a beautiful, interactive watercolor. Stunning to behold. It's a story about a young girl learning more about her deceased grandmother through the letters and puzzles that her grandma left behind. I've had my eyes on it for a while, watching as one of the lead artists, Cedric Babouche, posted development snippets on Twitter, and I have been delighted to see the game come together. I'm telling you now, this game is going to be on every single one of those like cozy games to play on your Switch videos that you see the year it comes out. Promise you that. I think you should give this one a look, and if it inspires you, wishlist it so you'll know when it comes out among the chaos of game announcements and news we face every day. I'll link to the game's Steam page in the description of this episode. Last episode, I asked you all what games you think are the most visually stunning. Here are your responses. Quantum Witcher on Discord responded, and this is a long one, so buckle in. Limiting myself to what I played this year, I think the only game that visually wowed me somewhat was Spider-Man Remastered. Swinging and webbing through Manhattan was definitely a visual delight, though nothing super special either IMO. I played so few games that came out this year. Elden Ring looked quite decent, but was not all that special, and parenthetically, apart from the gorgeous bosses. While Three Hopes has a style I'm super fond of, but was super let down by the Switch's capabilities at some points. That being said, a part of why I'm so hyped for Fire Emblem Engage is because I am in love with this graphical style. Oh my god. Especially the protagonists, both Aelirs look ravishing, but especially male Aelir might as well be one of my favorite protagonist designs in a while. More generally, some graphical style favorites of mine are The Witcher 3, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which are Quantum's top 2, 11 years apart, Tales of Arise, Hollow Knight, Crisis 2, Tyranny. I shall stop here. And so stops the Discord message. Thank you so much, Quantum. Lots to unpack there. I'm glad that Spider-Man continues to delight folks. It's one game I wish I could play because I too love the way it looks, from the combat design to the wonderful environment of Manhattan. Elden Ring is on my to-play list for this year. Very excited to play it at the end of New Year, New Game every day. But I'm hoping it'll have big, beautiful, grand landscapes and also neat, weird, wonderful corners with environmental storytelling emphasized. Part of what makes Bloodborne such a masterpiece for me is how much strange stuff is packed into every corner, with stacked coffins and abandoned carriages in the streets, to gravestones and dead bodies in the town square. I hope that Elden Ring has a very strong presence, as strong as death and perverse life are in Bloodborne. I agree with you on Three Hopes also. I really wish there had been more opportunities to explore the environments, though the character design itself was at least solid to me. And I think the hub world looks really great in the new Fire Emblem Engage. Let's hope there are tons of pretty things to look at in that there as well. Lastly, from your two top stunning game, or your list of top stunning games, Quantum, I'm going to pull two, The Witcher 3 and Hollow Knight. Witcher 3 was one of those stunning games that made me want to walk on foot across the entire map just to see every forest, every city, and everything for myself. And Hollow Knight executes each environment and character perfectly, from cute little bugs to sick infected shells, and cold forgotten ruins to lush reclaimed land. To me, Hollow Knight is perfect. Thank you again, Quantum, for the very thorough answer. Kineas/Reina on Discord said, the first visually stunning thing that comes to mind is the opening sequence in Breath of the Wild, when you first escape the Redacted at the start of the game, and you get the huge sweeping vista of the entire plateau. It looks amazing, and it also has the benefit of setting the entire tone for the game's sense of adventure in an untamed wilderness. And just from scrolling down my Steam library, says Keen, I feel that Control has some of the most stunning visuals over the entire course of the game. The feeling of danger and perdition as you cross through your first firebreak, thinking, I should not be here. The ever-present threat of the game's villainous force makes even something as mundane as a federal government office building feels supernaturally threatening. To Keen, the supernatural stuff feels really supernatural, and the game is their vote for certain. Thank you so much, Keen. How did I forget Breath of the Wild? It's so spectacular. It's extremely influential as well, as many Zelda games tend to be. But that first moment of looking off into the distance with Hyrule before you and the massive wilds around you is unforgettable and stunning. Control is a game I'm really glad somebody brought up, because the only thing I know about Control is the visuals, which are enough to convince me to someday play the game. There's a very strong sense of the normal that blurs into the abnormal, with familiar shapes being cast in strange lights and places. That's the sense that I've gotten, at least from the game, from having seen like 5 minutes of a speed run of it like a year or two ago. But the design lifts a lot of weight in Control, I think. Thank you so much for these, Keen. Snake on Discord said, the first recent game that springs to mind for me is Death Stranding. I remember stopping multiple times just to take in the view ahead of me, and it made it all the more impressive knowing that none of it was for show. Everything I was looking at was something I would have to go and contend with, be it a mountain, a distant storm cloud, or plumes of toxic smoke. And it all felt natural, both from a distance and up close. I never got the feeling that something was placed there specifically to be a mechanical obstacle or to make the world feel larger than it was. It just felt like the world, at times equally as inhospitable as it can be, often simultaneously beautiful. Thank you very much, Snake. This little review got me thinking a lot. Just as much as Quantum's mention of Elden Ring got me thinking about Bloodborne. Anyway. Death Stranding is absolutely gorgeous in its exteriors and very concretely futuristic and utilitarian in its interiors, which I think is a beauty in and of itself. There's always a sense of purpose to the design of the human-made environments, with Sam Porter Bridges' room being sleek, clean, efficient, and sterile. He's got a sonic shower, a cot that he's handcuffed to sleep on, a case for his gear, a case for the baby, a wash-up pedestal that he can make funny faces in the mirror at, and a bar cart with some snacks on it. And that's about it. Every inch of that room stands against it being a home. It's transitory for wanderers only, like a very pared-down hotel room or hospital room. Even more so are the loading dock-like lobbies where you receive your next mission. You store your vehicles, you drop off and pick up cargo. They're big, rectangular, metal, lit only as you enter them. These spaces are gateways between the organized lists of things you must do and the strange and beautiful chaos that's outside. The actual world you traverse is what Snake describes previously, a land that's 100% explorable with the right tools, but still hostile even though it's beautiful. The land wears you down from your boots up. The water can carry away your packages, and the rain destroys anything it touches. It's as dangerous as it is beautiful, and yet more pleasurable for the danger. And again, as Snake had mentioned, the environment is very natural, as opposed to the organized sterility of the interior environments, with streams running hither and thither, rocks piled up to the sky, and little green clutches where life can take a foothold and start again. So great suggestion, Snake. Molly Olive on Twitter said that Abzu, Firewatch, and The Long Dark all have somewhat similar but beautiful art styles that I love. Plus, good old Skyrim and Horizon, XD. I think XD is just laughing. I was going to say like Zero Dawn, but zeros with a Z. Anyway, and Forbidden West always do the trick. Thank you for these, Molly. Abzu has been on my list of beautiful games to play for a very long time, and someday I swear I'm going to get to it. It's got so many rich sea tones in it, with sapphire blues and strong teals and robust corals. It looks like a visual feast. Firewatch has a bunch of beautiful jewel tones too, and The Long Dark I think has more of like a muted palette that leans into the harsh coldness that the game revolves around. I think what's interesting is that these games, as Molly has said, have similar art styles in that they're a bit more simplified, I think, aesthetically, but the color palettes are so vastly different because each game seeks primarily to get its personality across to the player through the unique environments. I am surprised to see Skyrim among this list, though. I haven't played it myself, but I don't know if I've ever heard anybody discuss the visual style of the game in particular. And I think that may be because a lot of people mod the game, so the aesthetics may tend to change, but I would love to play that with that in mind, to try to preserve the dev's initial vision of the aesthetic look of the game. So thank you for that inspiration, Molly. And last but not least, Alex on Twitter said, of the games I've played this year, the tutorial area of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy game probably wins it, with the city of Yakuza Like a Dragon coming close second. The gooey, crystallized pink masses engulfing these hulking technological megastructures was just really cool. Thank you for that, Alex. I'm very excited to find out about this area in Guardians of the Galaxy this month for a new game every day. It's hard to make a tutorial area right, isn't it? You have to be visually interesting enough to make the place feel real and like give the player a reason to care about it. But you also can't make it so distracting that the player winds up going in the wrong direction or inspecting too many objects. A lot of tutorial areas are abandoned places, too, spaces that you don't return to in the game later. They're kind of like a little micro world where you practice your controls before you enter the world, like a playpen for kids that's put away when you get older. I prefer places that the player returns to later, not only to practice or re-practice what the tutorial had taught them, but also to see another side of the place. Like, and I'm sorry I'm mentioning Bloodborne again, but like Yosefka's clinic in Bloodborne. As for the city in Like a Dragon, one of my brother's favorite YouTubers, Thor High Heels, who I also watch with him, covered that city in his video on liminal spaces, which real life cities have a ton of. He thought that it captured the essence of those places really well, particularly in allowing you to explore lobbies, dead-end alleys, and weird stairs that kind of go nowhere. Thanks to Thor High Heels and also your comment, Alex, I'm now really excited to let loose in the city. So thank you so much for that. As for me, there's a game I found really visually interesting this year, and I want to get back to it, and that is Sable. I think Molly Olive might like this one, and other fans of Abzu, because it's entirely about exploring a stylistic environment. Sadly, the game wouldn't launch on Game Pass for me after I played it for 1 or 2 days, so I'll need to restart it on another platform, maybe on the Switch or on Steam. But your responses to last episode's question have reinvigorated me to pursue this game solely for the joy of seeing something beautiful unfold before me. Ooblets was fully released September 1st, 2022, developed and published by Glumberhead and available on Switch, Xbox One, Steam, and Windows. Ooblets is a bit like Animal Crossing in that it involves interacting with your quirky neighbors in order to get to know them better, as well as a house decoration element, and also the ability to contribute items towards Town Hall to fill out something like a figurine museum. It's also a lot like Stardew Valley in that your main source of income is farming and processing crops, creating dishes from those crops to give you more energy to do work in the 20-minute long days that the game has. And it's got equal parts Pokemon in there, where you battle creatures to recruit them to your team or farm. But instead of hurting them or throwing a capture ball at them, you accumulate style points in a dance battle between your team of Ooblets and theirs, and if you win, you get a seed from one of the creatures that you can grow back home. All these parts, however, come together to make something unique and fresh. First off, let's talk about the surface. What makes Ooblets different from all the games that I've mentioned so far? While Ooblets is like so many other games, it's got a unique blend of traits that sets it apart. Aesthetically, Ooblets is very soft, leaning into a pastel palette, embracing a simple, lineless art style, and featuring lots of smiling little creatures. There are very few hard edges to Ooblets. Even the spooky creatures are mostly just cute, like the Cthulhu-esque Snurfle, who has a tentacle-covered mouth, or the gloopy long legs, a two-legged spidery jellyfish creature with stripy legs and a fun little face. There's nothing unsettling or even confrontational about the people, the creatures, or the environment. I think this ties into what feels like is a cozy vibe for Ooblets, and that's the fact that there's no real danger, not on the surface or even in the practice of the game. You can't die, you don't hurt any creatures, and the only punishment you get is maybe being a little tired the next day if you stay up too late, or if you're like me and you forget to pause the game and you keep it on for an hour and you stand in the middle of your shop and you burn a whole day and then you're tired. But anyway, this softness I think sets it apart from Pokemon and Stardew Valley, as both those games have less of a gentle aesthetic. Pokemon is more anime and involves some more dynamic and battle-ready creatures, and Stardew Valley has more of a summery palette with defined lines and its pixel aesthetic. And both of those games, of course, involve combat and conflict in their gameplay. And I really appreciate the unserious nature of Ooblets just as much as I appreciate the gentleness of it. Don't get me wrong, though, I adore harsh games, difficult games, games with hard edges in every sense. I love conflict, I love drama, I love heartbreak, frustration, and anger in video games. I think these are great things to have in games. But I also think not every game needs to have them, though. I don't think it's crucial for a game to be serious or difficult for it to be fun. I appreciate Ooblets' lightheartedness because it provides a nice contrast to other games. Even in the naming convention in Ooblets, it's unserious. You grow carrots and sweetie beaties to make tree bees for Ooblets named Nam Nams, Bristlebuds, and Panzer Bears. Your neighbor Taffy talks in indiscernible nonsense and then gives you a sticky handful of gummies, which is the currency of the game, so you can go buy more Pompadoot seeds and Fartichoke seeds. You collect useless little springs and planks of wood, and somehow you can bash together a functional coop for your creatures while you sip on fresh brewed bean juice to get your energy back up. It's just goofy. So you know from the first step, you can just take it easy with Ooblets. It's a game that's difficult to make difficult because it's easy to enjoy. Ooblets has lots of hooks to it that'll draw you in, from farming and creature battles to decoration and story progress. Starting off, the farming is fun and easy. You plant seeds, you water them, and then you let them do their thing every day. You then harvest them, process them into ingredients if you want to, or you can just sell them straight away to the seed shop owner Mead for gummies. Again, that's the currency of the game. I'll stop mentioning that. Upgrading your farm involves incremental progress. You start off by hoeing your land, planting, watering, and harvesting stuff on your own. Then, as you save up gummies and crafting supplies, you can then build sprinklers to automatically water your crops for you. And then you're immediately going to replace those sprinklers with Ooblet coops, which are little houses where your team of Ooblets on the farm can live and do some work for you. They start off by just pulling weeds, and then they can water the crops for you, weed the crops for you, harvest the crops for you, and even start planting crops for you. The final stage for those coops is to keep your crops warm through the winter, which mercifully does not happen until late in the plot line, which allows you plenty of time to learn and excel in the game. The battles and the leveling system in Ooblets was an aspect that had hooked me as well, which integrates seamlessly into the farming aspect of the game, as you cannot battle a creature without first feeding it an item you've collected, crafted, cooked, or grown. Once you bring the desired tree bee to a wild Ooblet, you can select which Ooblets from your team you want to join the battle. When I wanted to fast track my way to victory, I'd pick out an Ooblet that could build up hype quickly, which then exponentially increased the amount of points I'd earn every dance move that my Ooblets did. When I had to be more tactical, I would select Ooblets that were good at neutralizing Fluster, which is a debuff that your opponents can place on you that makes your dance moves weaker. And sometimes in one-on-one battles, I'd go for an Ooblet that could simultaneously stun an opponent and earn points, effectively locking out my opposition out of the competition while still pushing me closer to victory. Ooblet battles are conceptually very simple, but there's a lot of room for strategy and experimentation, which makes it great at drawing you in. For example, there are Ooblets that seemingly do detrimental things, like giving your own team 2 Fluster, the debuff, in exchange for getting you 2 more beats the next turn. More Fluster means less points, but you can pair an Ooblet like that with a Ooblet that focuses on converting your Fluster, which is the debuff, into points for your own team. Then, it's a net gain if you play those 2 moves together, either on the same turn or in sequential turns, depending on how many points you have to spend. Learning how to use difficult Ooblets is very rewarding. And after a victory, you get a seed from that ooblet that you can take home and grow into a copy of that ooblet. So the game has a kind of catch-em-all flair to it as well. Initially, when I was playing through the story, I wasn't too invested in getting every ooblet, especially because I was inundated with different ooblets every single day that each required their own unique tree. But in the post game, when I still wanted to play ooblets, but I didn't have any more story beats to progress through, I gave ooblet hunting a shot. Why not fill the blank spaces in the ooblet almanac, which is kind of like your Pokedex, and get at least one of every type? That involved me into keeping an eye out for uncommon ooblets because each ooblet has 3 different variants: common, uncommon, and gleamy, which is, as you might guess, the shiny version. At the beginning of each day, you get a snapshot that tells you what ooblets will be spawning in which areas, and it also tells you what variant of them will spawn, very helpfully depicting in color each creature so you know what to look for in the field. I didn't think I cared much about that aspect of the game, but now when I boot up Ooblets, I always screenshot the Ooblet forecast. I write down the names and the locations of each ooblet that I need. And then I look in my almanac and I write down what treats I need to bring each one. And then I measure out my time, very carefully crafting each treat. And then I, with enough time left in the day, go hunt down all those ooblets and recruit them. And then I come home and I plant their seeds. And it's not just for the sake of mere collection. That's where Ooblets differs from Pokemon. In Pokemon, you'll catch a Pokemon, and if it's great, you'll use it, or if it's cute, you'll use it, and if not, if you're trying to just fill out the Pokedex, there they sit in the PC box the whole time, just kind of rotting away. Maybe you can trade them to friends, but no. In Ooblets, the Ooblets you don't recruit or use in dance battles don't just waste away in a box somewhere. They return to your farm, and they plant and harvest and tend to your crops. In fact, you can't recruit more ooblets than you have space for to house in your ooblet coops back at the farm. So everything ties together wonderfully. Another aspect of ooblets that really drew me in was watching my neighbors' personalities evolve and unfold with every conversation I had with them, which I think is also a draw for players of Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing. You get to see your neighbors' flaws and their better qualities every day as you talk to them, and you can help them do things like fetch items or get their missing ooblet when they go wandering off, just to get closer to them. I particularly enjoyed getting to know Milu, who was a closed-off, judgmental young man who couldn't understand why everybody he thought that he was better than didn't enjoy talking to him. He wondered why I, among all people, was the only person who checked in on him when clearly he was a very interesting and opinionated person. Why didn't they listen to his wise analysis? Things started to change for him when he allowed himself to be a little more vulnerable, a little less judgmental, and a little kinder, even though he said he was only pretending. Without knowing it, he was practicing kindness, and he later told me that people were acting much nicer to him now. I thought that was really cool, and it felt rewarding seeing my kindness and my care towards him turn into compassion he could give others. And if these weren't compelling enough options, Ooblets still has a few more, like home decoration, which is not necessary, but it is fun. The only basics you need in your home is a camp stove, a sleeping cot, and some storage, all of which the game provides you with at the very beginning. As you get more items, you may want more storage, which you can then buy from the local store, Manitui. It took me a long time to break away from just buying more storage trunks and actually buying interesting looking storage options, largely because I had no idea that those items that weren't storage chests could store items in the first place. I wasn't used to bookcases being functional because in other games they just come pre-decorated. You can't put something else on them. It was just an item to look at. Whereas in this game you can put things on them or inside them. It was fantastic. And then I just went to town. Since I have a ton of gummies, I no longer need to worry about using my money solely for buying seeds for the farm. So every day that I boot up Ooblets, I just walk into Manitui and I buy pretty much everything that's there. And thankfully, furniture occupies its own unlimited storage tab, so you don't have to worry about making room in your storage for a cabinet or something. I gotta say, when I started decorating my room, I actually enjoyed cooking and crafting treats more. Similarly unnecessary, but still a great hook, is the ability to customize your look. The only necessary clothing upgrade you ever need in most of the game, is to buy better backpacks for item storage, and then later in the game you need some cold-proof gear to help you climb a mountain. But aside from that, it's all just customization for your own pleasure. Nothing is gender locked either. You can have a beard one day and a dress the next day, or wear both of them on the same day. You can change your hairstyle for cheap at Snups, where Padrig, the socially awkward barber, will squirt out new hair on your head for a small price, and then you can head right on over to Key Bon Bon to buy some new duds from Churls, who has an obsession with cleanliness, and judging from the crumpled receipts he has on his floor, also an obsession with high-end audio gear. Like the furniture, clothing occupies its own unlimited inventory, so there's nothing to stop you from buying everything. Except, just so you know, they don't let you buy doubles of clothing, which is great because you can't wear 2 shirts at once. I like changing my outfit every day in the game just to try something new. And last but not least, I probably should have mentioned it first because it's the thing that propelled me through the game at first, but the plot is a very big draw for me for a few reasons. Ooblets' plot revolves around a few core mysteries. When you arrive at Badgetown, where your farm resides, there is dirty metal cans just plaguing the town piled up in the streets. Someone is dumping these cans in town and also leaving covert messages on scraps of paper communicating to a higher power about their can dumping schemes. There's also the mystery of why the Ooblet High Council, which is a ruling body of 3 very wise Ooblets, won't recognize the status of Badgetown and won't listen to its appeals for cityhood. The mayor wants your help in convincing the Ooblet High Council not to revoke Badgetown's status and evict all of its citizens, but in order to send them a message, you have to connect the whole town to the Oobnet, which is basically the internet, but Oobletified, I guess. That sends you on a journey to check out the adjoining areas, solving their problems largely through dance battles, so that you can turn on their Oobnet towers so that Badgetown can get better reception. I won't spoil the plot for you, but I really enjoyed the overarching story, each area's challenges, and the final showdown. The plot takes itself seriously enough to be enjoyable, but it's also relatively low stakes and at times very silly, so even at its most intense, it doesn't break the spell of comfort that the game had on me. That lightheartedness combined with the genuine interest I had in saving Badgetown made the plot of Ooblets the predominant hook for me. Because Ooblets is in part about dance battles, the music is a crucial part of the game, so let me talk about that for a little bit. I want to start off with the start menu track that plays every time you launch the game, which is called "The Convenience Store in My New Hometown Stocks My Favorite Cocoa." It sets the tone for Ooblets appropriately with its cute, plucky mood. Ooblets has a ton of tracks that are light and airy, like the morning theme, which is called Tip Tip Tip. You'll hear this one a lot, and thankfully it has a lot of variation in it, so it hasn't gotten annoying to me yet. There is a sparseness to the song that doesn't feel empty, but instead it feels full of space, packed with microseconds of downtime that make you look forward to the next beat or the next note. And part of what makes the base game's music refreshing is that you can interrupt it, of course, with the dance battles, so you're not always listening to the same tune all the time. And there are tons of battle songs, like my favorite, the aptly named WWW, WWW, lowercase than uppercase. As you might have noticed from the first 2 songs, the Ooblets soundtrack features a lot of interesting and uncommon instruments. This song in particular features, I think, a wah pedal, which gets that fuzzy, like, sound. And the song goes places, taking a break from the dubstep hardcore style tones to get a little more whimsical. Songs like WWW, WWW loop very well, providing the perfect background for the card-based dance battles where you need some time to focus. Overall, Ooblets is a lovely, quirky, unique, but still familiar experience that'll hook you from the start. Happy dancing, friends. It's that time of year where we reflect on the games that we played last year. I guess maybe that's usually December, but hey, let's do it now. That's why I'm asking you all, what were your games of the year of 2022? You can break it into categories if you'd like, such as overall game of the year, best indie, best AAA game, best ongoing game. Just kidding, you're all going to say Final Fantasy 14. Or you can invent categories that you might like most frustrating but good game, most emotionally stirring game, or the best game that wasn't your thing but you see why other people like it. Maybe the best late bloomer or local flavor game or game for impact like those other Game Award shows have. Tell me what's the best of the best from 2022 in your opinion. If you'd like to respond, you have a few options. You can respond to the tweet that I'm going to put out. You can tweet directly at Games in the Glade on Twitter using the GITG Asks hashtag. You can comment in the Discord section I have specifically for this podcast. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can leave a comment below the video. That's all I have for you today. There'll be more news and reviews soon. So keep an eye out for updates on your favorite podcatcher or on YouTube, and follow the show's Twitter account at Games in the Glade for more. This podcast is supported by Friends of the Forest on Patreon, a link to which I will leave in the description. Thanks to Puddles of Infinity for the use of their song Porches and Universes, and thank you to Titsay for the beautiful album art. And even though our time together is coming to an end, you can always find your way back here, my world-worn weary friend. There's a spot here in the clearing, in the quietude and shade, for you to relax a while and listen to Games in the Glade.